Welcome to Wisdom of Women, the podcast to bring you insights of successful women leaders. I'm your host, Sherri Hilton, and whether you're a working professional looking to level up, an aspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the stories of women who are making a difference, this podcast is for you. Our guests come from diverse backgrounds and industries, but they all share one thing in common. They've overcome challenges and achieved success through hard work, determination, and a willingness to take risks. They will tell their personal journeys, the lessons they've learned along the way, and the wisdom they've gained. Join me each week as we dive into the experiences and perspectives of extraordinary women and discover the inspiration and motivation you need to achieve your own goals. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, everyone. 63% of women have never had a formal mentor. Women who are in the position of potentially being a mentor typically say it's not because they're not willing, they just aren't asked. 54% have only been asked a few times, and 20% have never been asked at all to be a mentor for someone. Gail, you are the second highest producing RE/MAX team in all of Maryland, but I'm sure that didn't happen overnight. And you have a team of 12 that work together to hit that number. How and why have you done that, right? Like, what has propelled you? Because most only see successes, but how did you get here?
Well, that's a loaded question. It's coming from a management background. I used to manage real estate offices of 60 agents or so. So that's kind of how I got into it. And that's how I began realizing that one of my favorite things to do is to help people achieve and become all they can be. And so that's how it started. And it went on because I'm very competitive. Nobody can be better than me. So I had to keep going and going and going until I got to be really good. And of course, consequently, the people that work with me now, I kind of expect the same out of them. And it's amazing what you expect from people. They give it. So maybe that's mentoring. I don't know.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because you've developed such a brand for yourself. Like, Gail Nyman has a brand. The RE/MAX Gail Nyman team has a brand. That elevating of success and that personal brand that you've established. But I know that over time, there had to be struggles, right? Here at Wisdom of Women, it's about learning those valuable nuggets that helped you navigate your path and success to help others create the life they desire as well. So what hurdles back when you started? How did you get into real estate?
Well, I got into real estate kind of back-endedly. I came from a real estate family, and I always said, well, that's great, but I don't want to be in real estate. I need to go off on my own. I wanted to be a psychologist. And that didn't work out, but maybe it did now that in retrospect, some of these real estate deals, what I learned actually did help a lot. So anyhow, I got into real estate because I couldn't get a job anywhere else. And I found out that I just loved it. And, that was 40 some years ago. And I can't imagine, well, now I don't know how to do anything else. So that's how I got into it. But it's changed over the years quite a bit.
What was your catalyst for success? Like, where did you see that light bulb moment go off that you could see a dramatic shift into the Gail we know today?
Well, I think many of us can relate to this. A lot of times, people will say to you that the worst things that happen to you in life actually end up being the best things that ever happened to you in life. And for me, during the recession, in real estate, if you had any real estate during that time, it was just excruciatingly difficult to navigate through that particular market. And during that time, my husband was in real estate too, and we had many investment properties. And all of a sudden, people stopped paying rent, and people stopped buying houses, and our whole world shifted. And I'm pretty good with shifting with the winds, but he wasn't so good at that time. It was difficult for him to understand what was going on around him. And I hadn't done a lot of real estate at that point. I mean, I'd done some, I was doing it honestly for fun. And, I wanted to buy a new couch, so sell another house, that kind of thing. So during that time when no one knew what was going to happen in the real estate market, I realized that if I didn't learn to make money, in a lot of it, we were in danger of losing everything that we'd worked for. Literally everything. And so when you reach your rock bottom, or whatever your rock bottom is, and now that I look at that rock bottom, I think, oh, that was nothing. But during that time, it was my rock bottom. And I thought, my gosh, what if I lose my house? What if I lose all these other houses? And I said, all right, I'm going to make this happen. I am going to become everything that I knew deep down I could be. I was going to sell houses when nobody was selling houses. I was going to really make it big. And I had groups of people that I met with and mentored with, and other business people, to try to keep our attitudes in the right place. And during that time, I just built a structure for myself of, no matter what happens, I'm going to do really good. And at that time, yes, I became all I could be. And it was harder than, I remember, I remember lots of prayers, lots of prayers. God, if you help me do this, I'll do this. Please. If you want me to lose everything, okay, I'll lose everything. I'll start again. And during that time, we didn't. We didn't lose everything. And every year since then, I've always done better. So in a market like we have right now, where it's tightening up and people get all worried, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm ready. I am ready. I do better in a market that's slow. And I always have. And I've convinced myself that I can do that. So I love it. But those were bad times. I'm not being.
Yeah,
They were.
2008 was something that we never. You can't plan for a recession like that, right? We didn't expect
Well,
it.
we thought we could. I mean, we had money set aside, but it was not nearly enough because it went on for so very long. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
so now we're going into similar, right? It's not recession, right? But there is a lot of talk of what's going to happen to the housing market, and it's
yeah,
slowing down, or interest rates. And you hear a lot of it, right?
right.
In the media and on the news. So, question, right? What do you do? What tips do you have that would help those other female realtors that are trying to make it, who maybe have started during the boom and
Mhm.
are trying to stick it out through these years because they went into real estate when it was really good, right? And so now they're like, whoa, what's happening? Because it's not the same as it was 2 years ago. And what tips or, you know, practices, mindset, what is it that you practice that sets you apart that you could offer up?
Well, everything is mindset. Everything is. So you have to figure out for yourself what it is that calms you down, what it is that centers you. Now, for me, um, what I do is I have to start my day off by, a quiet meditation. And when I do that, I realize there's plenty of time in the day to do everything that I need to do. And when I don't do that, my days are chaotic, and I'm like, well, how could you not have done that today, Gail? You know why you're acting like this. So that it starts that way. And then I don't listen to the news. I stopped listening to the news long ago,
Yeah.
because it's someone's opinion. I can't get the facts. So I stopped listening. But that was good, because in a market like this, nobody knows what's going on. They truly don't. And it doesn't matter what the market does, because what you have to learn to do is you have to learn the basics of sales that work in any market, and they always will. But if you think you can't do it, and if you think you're going to have a bad month, or if you think it's going to be an awful year, well, congratulations. It's going to be bad. But if you think, and it's not think, if you know you're going to be there to serve the right people that you're going to meet are going to come to you, it will be a fabulous year. Probably better than you had in the good times.
Correct. Yeah. It's that belief and mindset, that positive mentality that pushes you forward, right? Believing in yourself and believing that it's possible. Because as soon as you have doubt, you start to fail and step backwards. Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I also believe too that, we've talked about this a little bit, the law of attraction. If you're really in tune with what's going on, the right people are going to come.
Yeah.
They just come. I still wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, I wonder who's going to call me today." I wonder whose house I'm going to get to go and see. And that just happens. They just come, or I just meet somebody, randomly. But it's not really random.
It's never a coincidence. Or as my Aunt Vicky would say, it's like never a coinky dink, right? Like it just
Right,
right,
right.
lines up perfectly. Um, you know, what tips would you offer someone entering real estate or any other field for that matter, that would help them to build their brand? I mean, you have such a great brand, but would help them build their brand and climb to the top of the industry and make an impact. Because quite frankly, you make an impact in real estate to your buyers and sellers as well as your team of 12, right? Look at how you've impacted their life, right? What tips would you give?
Well, I think, and it's probably true in any line of business, but I think that, like you were saying, mentoring is really the way to learn. I mean, that's the express way to learn so much so fast without it. I've been doing this for 40 years. It took me a long time to learn a lot of things, but I can teach someone else that, well, here's what is a shortcut. And so that's what, when I get my new team, when I get my team members, usually some of them are new. Some of them have already had some experience, but we collaborate a whole lot as a team and one-on-one. But that's how you really learn the business quickly, because you really can't make a mistake. There's something that we can always do to fix it. If you do, you own up to it, you fix it, you move on.
Yeah.
But sometimes people are afraid, and they're afraid to even make the mistakes. But your mentor can help you through that and say, well, look, here's a couple different ways you could handle this. And, it might have taken you 10 years to learn that. So that's the express way.
And a lot of times it's the mistakes is where you learn, right? If you're not making the
Most
mistakes,
of the time.
you're not growing and learning, right? Like
Right.
I make mistakes. You've got to make them in order to know what's the difference, right? How
Exactly.
was I supposed to do it correctly? I think
Mhm.
that's important. What book would you recommend someone read for, what's that favorite book, your go-to that helps with the mindset or the belief or the affirmations, things like that?
There's so many people. There's Wayne Dyer. I started off by reading As a Man Thinketh. And then it went to Think and Grow Rich. And I think probably the favorite of all times is Think and Grow Rich. We used to have even a book club. We would meet and we'd read chapters, and then a group of us would meet other business people too, because it is mindset and it makes you remember that. And there's a story called, oh, this is a wonderful one, Acres of Diamonds. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
I can't think of, maybe it was Ogmandino or something. Anyway, it's a real short story and it's a real short book, but it's about a guy that kept looking for diamonds and he was looking for riches, and he kept looking and looking and looking, and he looked everywhere and he could never find them. So he finally gave up, and he sold his house where he lived. And I don't know how it ended up, but somebody dug up his backyard, and literally there were diamonds in his backyard. He didn't realize he had everything he needed
All
right
along.
there in that one place. And he went looking everywhere for it and couldn't find it. So I think we all have it in us. We do. We just have to believe in ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, you have built such an industry. Like you are the standard where we live.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to watch. And I follow your team and watch their successes, and it's wonderful. So, if anyone has any questions about real estate, I'm sure, you are the person, the go-to to help mentor and bring that new person in and help rise them up so that they can learn the industry. Couple questions before we end. How do you motivate yourself?
And thinking about when you asked me the question of, where was the turning point? I realized that I learned from that turning point, and it still helps me every day. I had this, I had broken an ankle, and I couldn't really, I can't do crutches. And plus, I would never let anybody see me in that kind of a state. So instead, during that time, I decided, okay, I'm not going to be seen. I said, this is another challenge. This is like the recession. How am I going to make something good out of not being able to walk? And my doctor said, no weight on it for 3 months. How am I going to keep on doing real estate when I can't walk and I refuse to go out of the house? It looked like a cripple. I said, I'm going to learn from this because I know how to do this. So I learned, all right, every day, I was at home. This is before COVID, before people worked at home. And I never have worked at home. So this is weird. Every day I got up, I sat at my computer, I hobbled across my house, and I got to my computer and I started calling clients and I started making appointments. And I would make appointments and I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry. I just fell down. I sprained my ankle. I can't make it, but I'm going to send somebody from my team out to meet you. That worked. And then when I couldn't go up and down steps, I could hobble around, but I couldn't do steps yet. I would go to their house. They'd take the phone. They'd go upstairs, show me a video of the upstairs, get the listing. And then one of my happiest days was I had never seen the house and we were going to settlement. And I met my sellers finally for the first time. This is before Zoom. And I said, this is great. They go, we finally get to meet our agent.
That's spectacular.
But I realized, you can make good things happen no matter what happens to you. And I learned that. And no matter what happens, in fact, the worst thing that could happen is really, like you said, the best, because I made that work. And nobody even knew. Nobody knew.
It's amazing that nobody knew. Like you could just.
And I made more money that year not walking for 3 months than I ever had.
But you found a way, just like during COVID, we all had to find a new way to do what we do from the confinements of our house,
exactly.
Right? And so
a lot of those things we learned were great too from COVID,
Yeah. And you probably still utilize some of those things that got you through that time.
Yep, I do.
Because it worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
You found a way.
Yeah.
Second quick question is, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Deep down, I was brought up from a family where you're a girl, but you can do anything, literally anything you want. So in my head, I had a vision of where I wanted to be. But when I was 20, I had the vision, but I didn't believe in myself. I would say, stop waiting to be confident. I would pretend to be confident. And everybody thought I was, and I was always the leader of this and that and everything, but I wasn't really confident. So I would say, Gail, you know it, you need to do it. Just charge forward. But I was too scared at 20.
Great advice.
It took me till I was 34.
Great advice. And what brings you joy?
There's so many things. But this is going to sound hokey, but honestly, it's the truth. What brings me the most joy is seeing people around me have successes, because I'm truly as happy for them as they are for themselves. I love that. That's what brings me the most joy right now.
That doesn't sound hokey.
That's completely genuine, that I think is truly needed from women,
Yes.
right? To know that there's support amongst women,
Yeah.
when so many of us in our minds think that women are against each other and not here to support or mentor, right? And
Right.
so I think coming from you, knowing that's what you love, is to mentor and grow others, that I know that that's truly not hokey. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
well, that's it. Thank you for your time. And I hope everyone enjoyed Wisdom of Women.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Wisdom of Women. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and gained some valuable insights and inspiration. How to connect with me and our guest today, as well as any links, can be found in the show notes. Please share this episode with your friends. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review, as it helps us reach more women like you who are seeking to learn from successful women leaders. Stay curious, stay hungry, and always push forward. We'll be back next week with another amazing guest. Until then, keep chasing your dreams, and we'll see you next time on Wisdom of Women.